Hey guys, it's Athena from the Reptile Passion, and we've got a little bit more serious video today. As you know from the title of this video, I will be talking about the mistakes I made as a crested gecko breeder. So let's get right into it. So I would like to give you a little bit of history before I begin. So 2 years ago, in March 2019, I first started breeding my two geckos, Aurora and Calypso. So it was the start of my very first Harlequin pinstripe project. And from that union were born 4 baby geckos, whose names are Alpha, Dawn, Mist, and Blizzard. And I would like to share the mistakes that I made while raising them up, because they are still with me, and there is a very specific reason for that. The first of which is their weight. They're almost gonna be 2 this year. They're almost 2 actually, because they were born in August and September 2019. And the biggest of them all weighs 11 grams. And those of you who are familiar with crested geckos will know that this is not normal. This is the weight of a 4 or 5 month old gecko, They are very small for their age. And I will explain how this all happened. So, before I ever got into geckos, I did a ton of research. I researched from maybe January 2018 up to June 2018, because I was in the process of getting like a mirror dog. It's a sort of service dog where I live. And sadly, we ended up having to give her back to the organization because my own dog, Mika, who I've shown in my Meet My Pets video, she didn't like her at all, and she was aggressive towards the puppy, and we couldn't have that with a service dog, so we had to give her away, sadly. And a few months after that, I purchased my first gecko because I was looking for geckos because we weren't sure whether we would actually have a service dog or if I would be allowed to have cresties. So I had researched a lot about cresties before I actually got the service dog. And, I read a lot about it, and I made sure to know everything I could before I even got my first gecko. And then I read a lot about breeding before I even started getting into breeding. But, I probably could have done more. Like, there's always a possibility to do more. But in my mind, I was satisfied and I knew enough to begin. But there are things I didn't know. Because I live in a cold country, like I live in Canada, Quebec City, for those who are familiar with it. And we get cold winters, and we get, in our summers, like we get 30s sometimes, but it doesn't always stay hot. So, just to give you a little weather background and why this is important. Because I always thought that crested geckos did well at room temperature. In my room, the temperature is permanently around 20 degrees in winter. And in the summer, it goes up towards 24 a little bit. But I have noticed that with baby crested geckos, 20 degrees is not enough. They don't grow at this, at this temperature, they don't. Or their growth is very slow, especially because I used to keep them in my basement because I didn't want them to be disturbed, and so it was a very dark environment. They didn't have access to direct sunlight, and I thought it would be best, because my gecko setup was in the basement. That's the only spot in my house where I had space for it at the time. And so I left them in the basement. They didn't have much sunlight, and it was cold. And they stayed there for the majority of the fall and winter. And I'd say it was in February that I noticed that maybe something was wrong with them, because, I had never raised geckos before. They were my first geckos, and so I didn't really know how fast they were supposed to grow. But I was getting frustrated because I knew that when they were about 6 months old, they should weigh more than 2 grams. I was like, what the hell is going on with them? And I kept weighing them every week, and they were just not growing. Or they would take like 0.001 gram per 3 months, which really wasn't normal at all. And so I started to freak out, and I brought them upstairs. Still nothing. I then tried to move some of the babies into a terrarium, an Exothera 12 by 12 by 18. It was a little bit big for them, but it was like, well, maybe they need more heat, maybe they need UV as well, because I keep my little babies in plastic tubs, and so I was like, maybe they're not getting enough light. So I tried UV with them and a heat lamp for a couple months. Nothing at all. I was like, what the hell is going on? And at this point, the two clutch mates, like, they were still together. And that's when mistake number 2. Like, yeah. So mistake number 1 was the temperature, and mistake number 2, well, I was still keeping them together. And that's when I had the problem of tail nips. Yep. A sort of cannibalism. Like, they basically ate the tip of each other's tails. So 2 out of these 4 babies now have tail nips. And after I saw that, like, I separated them immediately. And then they slowly started to improve, because I hadn't noticed that they were fighting over food. Like, I didn't know that it had happened, but I had read that it was fine to keep babies together until they were until they weighed like 10 grams or so. I was like, oh, they're 2 grams, they're still fine. No, they weren't. But if the nip tails taught me something, is that they needed like protein. And of course I was supplementing them with like cricket powder and everything, but since I thought that they were too small at 2 grams to eat crickets, I didn't feed them. I was waiting, when they'll weigh 5 grams, I'll give them crickets. I was wrong. Because when they started to grow? When I moved past my fear and gave them crickets. And ever since then, they've been growing and they haven't stopped. Right now, my babies are growing approximately 1.5 grams per month, which is a lot better. It's still a little bit slow, I will admit that, but it's much better than it was. And I'm happy about that. So that's 3 mistakes. The temperature wasn't right, and then they were together, and they weren't eating crickets. So my advice to you is, if you have babies, separate them immediately. Wait about 2 weeks before starting to feed crickets, and you can feed the small ones or the pinheads. And, just make sure that the room you're keeping them in is warm. I'd say around 22, 23 degrees is the best for them, So that's my adventure with my little geckos. And, I still feel bad that I wasn't able to catch this, that I made mistakes. And I'm still mad at myself for it. But it would be even worse for me to hide this from you. Why? Because I made mistakes, and I didn't know better, but now I do. And I want to share this with you guys so you don't make the same mistakes, because it would kill me to know that I know something, that I have a certain knowledge, and I don't share it with you. Like, this wouldn't be nice of me at all. Like, it's as if I would be ashamed of my knowledge. Like, no, this is something I gained the hard way. But I don't want you to gain this knowledge the hard way, so I'm gifting it to you. And I'm still mad at myself, but I can't be ashamed of showing my mistakes, because I'm human and you are too. You don't have to expect to be perfect when you're starting your breeding program. You will make mistakes, you will lose eggs, and you will lose babies, and you may have growth problems like I did. And that's fine, as long as you learn from your mistakes and don't repeat them in the future. So that's why I am sharing this with you guys, and I really do hope you will understand. And another thing that some people may tell me is, well, are you sure it's not genetic? Because these babies were all from different clutches, Well, they were from 2 different clutches, actually. And this year, I produced 4 more babies, and they were growing faster than the 4 2019 babies, but they were still growing slow, even though I was feeding them crickets. So this year, what I'm trying to do is to verify that this issue isn't genetic, that isn't a problem between Aurora and Calypso. And this is why I bought Delta, because I want to know if her babies will grow faster than Aurora's. Because if it is a genetic issue, then I won't breed this pair again together. Like, That would just be stupid to produce babies that have issues, you know? And that's also why, because if they do have a genetic issue, that I'm not selling my 4 2019 babies, because I want to make sure that they reach adult size and that they're healthy before I actually do sell them. And I will tell their owners not to breed them, because I don't want a risk of a genetic issue just being free like in the wild of owners and everything, and them having the same frustrations as I did. So yeah, so don't ask me if these 4 babies are for sale. You will see them in my videos, but they are not for sale. And you know, at the same time, I do use these babies as a sort of baseline, because I watch them grow, and so I know what their structure looks like when they were babies, and then I can compare my new babies to them and know what they'll look like as adults or as juveniles, you know. So they're useful in that sense as well. So I'm not selling them not until they reach 30 grams each. So yeah, this basically wraps up this video about all the mistakes I made as a crested gecko breeder. And I will probably make multiple editions of this video, just because, you know, I've only been in the hobby for 2.5 years. And I do want to continue breeding geckos, and so I will probably make a lot more mistakes than this. So if you made mistakes and you would like to share them with me, then go ahead. I would love to hear from you, and maybe we could help each other prevent bad things happening. So yeah, basically all I have left to say is thank you for watching, and I hope you have success in your breeding if that's something you wish to do, and I hope you'll have a nice day. Bye!